Okay, good afternoon, good morning, hello, to wherever you are. We are in our 177th Reading Online Sports Economics Seminar. We are very pleased to have Ivan Trestcov presenting. Before he starts, a couple of short administrative reminders. You'll see in the invite a list of all the forthcoming talks, a couple of changes here and there. We've got Bobby Butler presenting in a couple of weeks now. That's a slight change in the schedule, so do look out for that. If you want to be involved and be part of the WhatsApp group for the Roses talks, which works because the chat on Teams is fairly useless and allows sports economists or economists interested in sport to have a common place to chat and share bits of information. These talks, for example, let me know if you want to join that, and then you'll need to send me your phone number and I can add you to the WhatsApp group. Conference plans are starting to come together for next year. I've been putting those also in the reminder. One thing to say is that there's a slight tweak likely to happen to the European tour of sports economics that we had this last spring. We're hoping to have that again, but there's a slight tweak because there's a new conference that we've become aware of thanks to Dennis, a conference Active Territories, Sport and Leisure in Power in France, which is on May the 13th and 14th, which is just after the Gijón conference, which is scheduled to be May the 9th and 10th. And what we will probably do, rather than be in Reading before that, which was the original thought, and what we did last year, we'll go to Duisburg and have the Football and Finance Conference probably on May the 6th and 7th. So that's a look ahead to next spring. I'm also going to be organising a conference in mid-February at the location that's behind me here in the stand that's there, if you can see it, at Oldham Athletic. And more details on that will emerge as they come. We hope to have some reasonably high-profile speakers in the area of football, finance, analytics, and economic history. That's enough for now. I don't want to take away any more time from Ivan. His presentation is titled Winning Culture, Winning Future, the Effects of Early Career Success on Long-Run Performance. Ivan, please do take away your talk.
Thanks, James. For the intro, I will start sharing my screen with the presentation. Please say me if you can see it.
Yep, it's all good.
We'll start. Yeah. Okay. So, thanks a lot for having me here. My name is Ivan. I am based in Czech Republic, Prague. Our institution is called CERGE-EI. And so this paper that I'm going to present is a working paper, so it's like a work in progress. And actually, it's going to be presented soon as part of my PhD defense thesis. And so how it's come here, one of my referees contacted James and said, okay, Ivan maybe can present here. So my referee was Luca Fumarco. And so this is kind of dry run before PhD defense, let's say. So please feel free to give me any comments about the content, presentation, so on. But this is raw material, I would say. So I did this presentation only last week, and this is the first time I'm presenting it. Okay, so today I will talk about career, particularly about early career, and how it impacts long-run performance. So it might be relevant for PhD students that are listening right now, or fresh graduates, because we'll talk like how your first job environment on the first job will impact your future performance. And this paper was written with Ajmal Rakhmetova in collaboration. So kudos also to her. And I will start with motivation for this paper. First of all, it just seems that early career experience play a crucial role in shaping career in general. So you have your first boss, you have your first salary that then can be increased. But it's not only seems like it, also we have some data. For example, those two guys, Khan and Areopoulos, wrote a well-published paper, and they were analyzing how the environment in global economy affecting fresh graduates. So if you're graduating during a recession, it will have a very large negative and persistent impact. So you will have lower wages. In decades, you will have lower satisfaction of with your job, and so on. I'm sorry, there is some question? Oh, okay. And so considering the fact that the last year everyone is talking about upcoming recession, this is how I see myself next year. Because like, yeah, my defense is soon. I already have a job, but still, yeah, a bit scary. And so that was kind of a formal motivation for the paper, but also there is informal motivation, and this will explain the title of the dissertation a little bit. So I was listening to a podcast by Bill Simmons. They are covering some NBA stories, and they were talking about Miami Heat and this is one of the NBA's team, and about their culture. So they're known for their very tough style of play, competitiveness, and so on. And they were talking about new players coming to Miami Heat, then turning up to be a better players. And there was a question if we can see this also in the data. Is Heat culture for real? So that's like another motivation. That's why one of the titles was like winning culture, winning future, but now my supervisor actually advised me to change it, because you will see that we'll actually not talk about culture. We'll talk more about some other career environments, but just a side note for this. So what are the main results? Spoiler alerts. We found that early career environments have really strong, significant impact on long-term performance. And we analyzed three types of environments. Two of them were contributing to long-term performance improvements. One of it is team success, how many wins team will have in the first season the player joins the team. And second, what is the success level of the coach? So team success and coach success were the key factors that we found significant. Also, we analyzed peer effects, and I will talk a little bit more in details what each of those environments mean in the stats, but we didn't find a significant impact from the peers, which is also kind of significant because there is like huge strand of literature showing positive impact of peer effects. So let me tell you in a nutshell, so what we are doing to analyze the impact in general of the early career on long-run performance. So we are doing it in the case of NBA players, and we are utilizing NBA draft lottery because draft lottery introduces some randomness in allocation of players. So in which in team will you play your first season is partially facilitated by NBA draft lottery. And I will tell you more how exactly we're using it to isolate causal impact in the identification strategy part. And so what are the environments that we are analyzing? As I said before, it's team success, and we measure it as a number of wins in the first season of the player. So if you're joining the team which winning 50 games versus team which are winning 20 games, let's say. Then we are also checking who is your coach in your first season. So, and we are measuring the success of the coach by number of career wins that he has before you join the team. And the third one is, as I said, peer effects. And here we measure it as presence of a star player in your team, which is basically if there is top 15 players in your team when you join the team. So, and top 15 players are, they have in NBA some awards each year. It's called All-NBA, and they awarding best 15 players each season. So, and if in the last season your teammate received an award, we will say that there was a presence of a star player. Let's briefly also talk about what was done already in the literature. So as I mentioned, there were some studies showing a broader environment impact on earnings and job satisfaction and other labor-related outcomes by Khan and Areopoulos. Also, there is a lot of studies on effect of a team leader or mentoring, showing some positive impacts. And as I said, there is like vast literature on peer effects showing that there is like positive impact with higher performing peers. But then you can ask, so what is the contribution of this paper if there is like a lot of papers also showing something like this? So I would say that most of them are focusing on the not on the performance, first of all. And if they're focusing on the performance, they're considering short-term outcomes, some initial earning, job placement, and so on. So usually it's some lab experiments. For example, if it's team leader, they put you in a lab and estimate your performance if you have a team leader or don't have team leader, or it's some experiments also in the field that are conducted during a short period of time. So why it is? So I would say that it's really hard to track for a long period of time and consistently the performance. But in the real world evidence, but in sports, so that's what we are doing here. We have a lot of data about performance, and we are tracking each second, each step of the player. So we have a lot of data for a long time, and it's measured consistently. And not only we have really nice individual data in sports, we also very commonly have a lot of some policy changes, rules changes, and sometimes even some lotteries. So NBA draft lottery in this case, which is the holy grail of causal inference, to have some lotteries for the randomness. So lottery introduces the randomness in the allocation of the players throughout the league. And I think all of you know it, but because it's a crucial part of the paper, let's quickly have some background about NBA draft lottery. So this is a process of player allocation in the NBA. And you might know that in American sports, it's a bit different than in Europe. You cannot just pay LeBron James $1 billion and acquire him. There are some limitations on acquiring players. You can you have salary cap for the players, so you cannot pay for the team more than some particular cap. And how you can acquire players? You can trade with other teams, so exchanging players. Also, players are signed for a limited amount of time, and when the contract is ended, they can go in the free agency market and choose the teams, which would be bad for us because this this is endogenous, but we are focusing more on the new players. So how the new players can enter the league. There is this draft process. So all the eligible players and players that want to enter the league, they are in some kind of draft pool, and they can be chosen by the team. So this is like this situation in the pickup basketball where we have captains and they're choosing players in their teams. Instead of the captains, we have here team managers. And the important thing for our paper is like what is the order actually, how they are choosing and how it's done. So and you see, so there is like a salary cap to equalize the strengths of the teams, and also NBA draft lottery have aim also to somehow equalize the team strengths. So the worst team from the previous season can choose the first player, so the best one. But also, so they did it for several years, but then they realized that there is a high incentive to lose. Actually, if you're if you have a bad team, for example, it's the end of the season and you don't have any chances to win, and then you also see that the next year in the draft pool there is a guy, LeBron James, and everybody is saying that he's really good. So what you can do, you can lose a lot of games in the end of the season and acquire and get like higher chances to acquire LeBron James. Or if it was like before, if it was determined, if you get the last spot, then you'll for sure get LeBron James. But they don't like it because people don't like to watch games where you try to lose. And actually, sometimes it's even fun to watch it because sometimes two teams playing which want to lose, and they implementing some strategies like how to lose, how to put the worst players on the court, and so on. So to avoid this phenomenon, which is called tanking, they implemented also this lottery system that will give you some chance to pick first or second, and it will depend on your place, but it will not be for sure. So if you have the last place, you will get, let's say, like 20% chance to have the best player. If you will be second last, you'll have 18%, and so on, so on. So you can see that it introduces some randomness because like the worst team will not for sure will have the best player, but there is some variation, and it's literally looks like bingo game. So they have this ping pong machine and a lot of balls there, and the team have dedicated numbers, and they pick the balls from the machine. And if you have the number that is dedicated to you, then you won this pick. And as an example of that, how it can be randomized, for example, in 2019, the first pick won New Orleans Pelicans, and they had only 6% chance. So it might be that very good players will be allocated not to the worst team, but to the better ones. A little bit also about the data. So again, like sports economics is great because like we have this amazing individual level detailed data available open source. So everything what we need is basketballreference.com. There is data about performance, there is data about win losses, they have stats about coaches, and they have stats about draft picks, so when each player was chosen. And for performance, I will note here that we will focus on 4 metrics that are widely used in the literature as performance metrics for the players, which is win shares, player efficiency rating, true shooting percentage, and value over replacement. So first two, those are just some weighted averages for all the classical basketball stats like points, rebounds, assists, and so on. true shooting percentage is, I think, self-explanatory. This is also weighted average of 3-point shooting, 2-point shooting, and free throw shooting. And value over replacement is more about box plus minus. So it's like what was the score difference when you were on the court. So when you, let's say, entered the court, the score was +5. When you exit, it was +10. Then you will get like +10 points on the box plus minus, but there are like some adjustments for this value over replacement metric. So how exactly we used the NBA draft lottery mechanism to isolate causal inference? So we decided to use as instrument the difference between your expected draft pick and actual draft that you get. So, and you can call it like luck. Some teams are lucky and they were expected to choose like New Orleans Pelicans that I was talking about. They were expected to choose, let's say, 10s, but they got the lucky ticket and now they're choosing the best player. And it can be vice versa. Some teams expected, so they were the worst last season and they're expected to choose the first one, but they were unlucky and they're choosing third or fourth. And so, for example, in this table below, you can see the example. For example, Boston Celtics, they were fourth from the end last season, so they are expected to choose the fourth one, but they were lucky and they have the first pick, so they will have this instrument metric as 3. And you can imagine that this will be highly correlated with the environment because the luckier the team, the better will be environment. Because like the luckier you are, the more wins you had in the previous season, probably you have better coaches, you have more star players and so on. But it's also not clear like how it can be affecting long-term performance because it's driven only by the randomness of the draft machine. So it seems like it's a valid instrument. And this is like formal equations. So we're doing a classic 2SLS model. In the first stage, we're regressing our early career factors, which are team wins in the first season, coach career wins, and star player presence on our instrument, which we call here luck and control variables. And in the second stage, we're using performance metrics, and we're doing annual growth for the 5 years in this metrics to see like how rapidly or slowly players increase their performance during the 5 years. And also it's important to control for the peak, which players are chosen, because this will be somehow controlling for performance of the player before NBA. So first picks will be like the best players, second picks second best, and so on. And you can imagine now that what we are basically doing. So we are fixing the peak. So let's say we have a player that is chosen by number 5, and then we are comparing those players chosen by number 5, which end up playing for the worst teams, let's say, with low number of wins, with worse coaches, and so on, to the players which go to the lucky teams and have more wins, better coaches, and so on. And here, important to note that so we are assuming that it's not the teams are choosing the players, but more like they got the order, and then it's more or less predetermined which players will go at which spot. And to show some evidence for this, we're plotting just simple graph of performance, historical performance of the players by the draft pick, just to show that the teams, they have good idea of how well players will perform in the future, so they can estimate what is their performance level. And we can see that higher peak numbers, so the players that have chosen in the end of the draft lotteries, they have significantly lower historical performance. And also to formally check the validity of the performance, here we were showing the first stage regression, just to see that the instrument is relevant. So, and we can see that there is like clearly high correlation between luckiness of the team and environment that team have. So the more luckier it is, the more wins it has, better coaches and better peers. And now let's go to the results. So first, we focused on the number of wins in the first season, and we can see that the more wins the team had in the first season of the player, the better his long-term performance is, and it's consistent for all the metrics, and the values are quite substantial. Also, we did a small heterogeneity analysis, and we checked whether the impacts are stronger for US versus non-US players. And we found that some weak evidence that for some metrics, it's lower for US players. So somehow Europeans are exploiting more better environments. Also, we checked heterogeneity by age. So we divided sample by the median. The median was age 22. And we also find like some heterogeneity that the environments are more important for older players. So for win shares, for example, and PER, they had more higher impact than younger players. So to summarize, if a player ends up to be in the team which will win more games in the first season, have higher performance growth over the next 5 years, and you can think about some mechanisms that it can increase your mental state, self-confidence, you're playing for the winning team. Also, there are some studies showing that winning increases your level of testosterone, which can boost your performance in training, for example. This can be another mechanism, which we didn't explore in this paper, but just speculating here. And that for non-US players and for older players, important environments play more important role than for US and younger players. Which also might make sense. You're older, you know that you need to use this first years at maximum. Then we went to the impact of coach experience and coach success on the performance. So we also found significant impacts. And to remind you, so coach wins, it's total number of wins prior to player entering the season, and it might be in hundreds of wins. So you can see here small numbers, but in reality, it can give you up to 1%, let's say, for 100 wins in true shooting, which is quite a lot. Like 1% in true shooting can differentiate you from average player to like top tier shooters. So coaching really matter. And then we analyzed the peer effects. And this is the presence of a star player. So if one of your teammates was all NBA player, so top 15 player in the last season, and here the results were much weaker. So we couldn't find a significant impact only for win shares, but it was also like marginally significant, only on 10%. And so to summarize also last two results, it seems that more experienced coaches really important for your long-term performance. And yeah, you can also speculate on some mechanisms that they have, like maybe better insights, better strategy to develop new players, which yields better performance. And for star players, yeah, we couldn't find significant impact on the performance, and we were thinking like how we can explain it, and we were thinking about like two mechanisms. First, usually in the peer effects studies, the environment is like for measure individual performance. So they are performing some tasks, working alone, and so on. And in basketball, in sports, we have the team that is also impacting your performance. And there is a lot of collaboration. And so maybe this difference important for significance. So maybe peers are more important if you work individually somehow and have some guidance from the peers. But if you collaborate with them, then it's not that important. And also there is some competitive nature in the basketball for the playing time. So actually there is like incentive not to help you much, because like if you have more playing time, then other player will not have playing time because it's limited. So maybe this can be also one of the mechanisms. And that's about it. So to conclude, so we were analyzing the impact of early career environments and the long-term performance of the NBA players, utilizing the NBA draft lottery. We found that it's really important for the long-term performance what is team success of the team you're joining in, and what was the coach, so what was the leader of the team. And we didn't find the impact of peers in this setting. So yeah, it's crucial to choose wisely your first occupation, your first team. It seems to be that it should be successful and be also thoughtful about who is your coach, who is your team leader, and so on. Thank you. And if you have any questions or feedback for the presentation or content or paper in general, we'll be happy to hear.
Great. Thank you very much, Ivan. I'm going to give you a team's round of applause. That was a really interesting presentation on something that I don't have very much knowledge about. So it was nice and clearly presented, interesting results. Wayne Grove said that he had to leave early and wanted to convey the same thing. He really liked your paper and the results. So fantastic. Thank you very much. We've got lots of time for questions and comments. So if you do have a question or comment, please do feel free to raise your hand. I'll ask a quick question. Again, I don't know much about North American sports, for better or worse. But I guess the interesting thing there is that you found that the win percentage of the team matters for a player's development, but at the same time, these players are picked by teams that have done badly the previous season. So is there lots of variation from season to season in the win percentage? Is it the case that a team can go from finishing quite low down to winning lots next season, and then the players in that team go on and do better? Is that essentially what you're saying happens quite a bit?
I would say so, yeah. So there is like some cases when team can go from like 10 wins to 40 wins, but it's rare, and there is clearly a correlation between like wins in the past season versus future season. But we're here talking, yeah, so not about like, persistency of the number of wins, but more how those wins are impacting in the first season. So when you joined, it's really important if you join the team with like 10 wins or 50 wins. And we can see that it's important to be experiencing wins during your early years in NBA. But yeah, you're right that usually worst performing teams, they stay worst performing for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, given that, I wonder, I mean, this is just an idea that springs into my mind, whether a different metric to look at could be kind of a relative number of wins or the change in the number of wins from the, in the season when the player first starts to the previous season. Because presumably, if you go from being a bad team that got a good pick and you start to become a middling team, that's a positive step for that team, and perhaps there's a more positive atmosphere, and that helps your career development as well, that you're part of an incremental improvement in the team's performance.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's an interesting question, whether like not the absolute value, but a relative value to the previous season. Yeah. Well, it's probably not better environment if you go to the team which win 20 games. And just to tell you, like usually worst team win like 20 games and the best team winning like 60 games. And like if you go from 20 wins to 25, probably it's the same. You're still losing most of the games.
Yeah.
But interesting question whether like improvement also somehow may impact your performance. Yeah, good point.
Well, Kenneth has his hand up, so Kenneth, do go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. Quite interesting. I have some questions about the draft and kind of the claim of quasi-randomness and of causal impact here. And I think actually your point on age might be counterproductive to your argument. I don't know if you've plotted that and looked at the average age of draft picks.
So it's 22.
I'm sorry, from each position. Sorry, like each pick, right? Because NBA teams are often drafting on potential, and thus are taking younger players first, and then so the younger players are actually going to the worst teams, whereas the better organizations who are picking at the end of the draft, one could be better talent identifiers, and two be better fits, because they're not picking on potential, but actually these players are also older, so there's more known about them. So this is something that I'm worried about in your strategy.
And so fair point. And to deal with this, we're controlling for the age of the player and for like demographics, other characteristics of the player. So age is controlled as one of the control variables.
And also position.
And also position, yes.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Kenneth. Pete has got his hand up.
Just to follow up a little bit on the age, there's been previous research that showed that because of the early entry into the NBA, that regardless of what team they're on, those younger players tend to develop quick. Well, I guess their human capital hasn't developed as much, and so you see a bigger improvement of those younger players. But I see that you're controlling for that. The other thing is you were talking about foreign-born players, and there seems to be, in terms of not European players coming over. It seems like there's two paths European players enter the NBA with. One is they come over and they play college ball in the U.S., and then the other is with where they play in leagues at home, and we find that they're different players. So you might want to control for that as well if you can get access to that data.
Yeah. So I was showing like heterogeneity, like what is the difference, but in the main regression, we're also controlling for the nationality of the player. So if he is coming from Europe, US, Africa, and so on. Demographics were also included. And there is like a lot of statistics and information about players. Actually, that's also.
Yeah. But it's more than just nationality. Some players like Akeem Olajuwon played college ball in the U.S. Others like
Yeah.
had come directly from abroad, and a lot of times they have a lot more experience, and so because of that, they tend to probably not benefit as much from entering because they've already had that experience.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the paper. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, good point. Actually, that would be really nice control also to include number of games played before NBA, right? Because I don't have it. I have some proxy for like previous performance, but not explicitly the experience. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
For the feedback.
Thanks, Pete. Any more questions and comments? Kenneth.
Yeah. So I have maybe a paper that I'm not so surprised about your coach findings. So there's actually a really nice paper on, funny enough, like the age of your kindergarten teacher in the US. And actually the age of your kindergarten teacher can actually be quite predictive of your future earnings. So suggested that, yeah, the older the teacher is, the better your future outcome will be. So this is quite in line with that research.
Yeah, if you can share.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Secondly, for the teammate awards, I would actually expect that star players actually have a negative impact, and just because they kind of suck the air out of everybody else. And maybe to counter this, it's possible to look. I know the NBA votes on the Teammate of the Year award.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this would be actually quite easy to add, and you could look at the top vote getters for the Teammate of the Year award to see if like they're usually older players and can be are mentors, and usually the year that they win it, except maybe Tim Duncan, they're not a top 15 player.
That's a really nice suggestion. Yeah. It'll be easy to check. I was thinking like that, like star players are not usually the best mentors, let's say, for the players. And I wanted somehow also to match position. So if a star player has the same position as you have, which I haven't done yet, but like some teammate of the year, nice one. But the problem with this is that usually it's only one teammate of the year, so it will be like a very low variation here. So maybe
right, which is why I think if you look at the vote totals, the vote counts, because it is voted on by other players, you might be able to have more sample, a larger sample size. Same with like coach of the year as well. You could look at the past voting or executive of the year as well. These could be quite easy dummy variables to add.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Kenneth. Any more questions and comments? Well, thank you very much, Ivan. That was a very interesting talk. Good questions and comments at the end there. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you to everybody who contributed. We will return next week when we will switch towards road cycling. We have Julian Mathers from Heidelberg University. Don't put all your legs in one basket, theory and evidence on competitive, so competition even in road cycling. So look forward to seeing many of you next week, and I wish you all a fantastic weekend. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.